What is going on, everyone? It's Tuesday. That means it's time. Welcome to the castle. That's Cardstock After Lock. I'm going to be hosting and contributing yet again. Our good friend Dean 78904, if you want to get all technical on us, is out of town. He's having fun on vacation. Well-deserved, Dean. We'll have you back in the studio real soon. As always, man, one of my good friends from up north, Toe Tag and Tambo. Tyler, what is going on, my friend?
Oh, what's up, Will? I'm excited. I love the intro. Drop me if you want to get all technical on Dean's head. Love to see that. We always have a good time when we're on here, though. And we're back to cardboard this week. I think we got a pretty good show lined up here. Going to be talking some NBA cards. You know, some guys are in the playoffs, some aren't. Are there some guys that we can target and whatnot? So certainly excited to get into it. And of course, we got Sports Card Investor as always. I'll kick it over to you to segue into the nice promo.
For sure, man. And this promo is always going on, which is a beautiful thing. And that's like Tambo said at sportscardinvestor.com. Promo code Grinders. That's going to get you 20% off your first payment for their outstanding market movers tool. That's 20% off for the month or 20% off for the year. I always make this clarification. If you utilize the promo code for the month, no, you do not get access to 20% off for the year. Go ahead and get 20% off for the year. We're going to be showing off the tool today. Jeff was here, I think, about 2 weeks ago now, and he went over some things with us as well. Anytime we're talking cardboard, we're typically going to get into some screen share so that you can see the power of market movers from sportscardinvestor.com. Promo code Grinders. 20% off. Tambo, we are live. We're getting into this thing. We're talking basketball. I'm going to kick it over to you this week because what we're talking about is now the time to start buying NBA, right? And I know that seems a little weird because we're in the playoffs and we're going to see some big performances. But the reality is half of the league is still sitting at home. Half of the league is not going to be on display. So what's kind of your initial thoughts? Do you think now is the time to buy? And, we'll pull up some charts and stuff like that. But just your initial thoughts, man. How are we going to start approaching NBA in the waning days of the playoffs?
Yeah, so I think it's time to start buying some. And by that is some of the teams you talked about, the ones that are sitting at home. We'll get into some of them after, but I mean, the Western Conference looks pretty juicy. If you can go down to the bottom and see some of those guys, you can get Zion, Halliburton, Edwards, Shai, my guy SGA. You got Kevin Porter Jr., all these guys that people basically gave up on because their season ended, which, to be honest, you and I both know it was pretty much to be expected. Maybe the Pelicans could have snuck into the playoffs. Maybe they do a little something, but you just didn't expect them to go too far. Versus right now, you've got guys on the rise like Jason Tatum, Luka Doncic. All these guys are starting to come back around some. They're still maybe down from what you might have seen them at last year in the playoffs, but they're, buying them right now to get, once you get them and everything and what you're going to make on them if you are investing, to me is not really the best time. And even if you're buying them to hold for long term, I personally don't like going after those right now for what they are. But all those other guys I mentioned, just using my Western Conference, I'm a big Lakers fan. Maybe it'll be time to buy some LeBron soon. I don't know. Hopefully they can figure their stuff out against Phoenix, but overall, I do like buying certain targets right now because you'll see it too, right, Will? And I'll kick it back to you in a second, but a lot of people are using their money for other items, right? They're starting to think about football now, and maybe they buy some of those football targets we talked about on here a few weeks back, and they're starting to get into that. Or maybe they're buying Prism sealed boxes because now they're going to want to have that coming up for the NFL season. All the hype around the trades, the draft, everything that we just had is starting to flip people's mind over to that on top of all the other things across industries and crypto, NFTs, Top Shot we talk on here, all these things where people are moving their money to different places. So I think people are dropping their prices pretty quickly nowadays on some of these guys. As soon as they're done with them out of the playoffs, it's over and they move on to something else. So I certainly think there are some good targets out there and we can take a look here in a little bit. What are your thoughts, Will?
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm with you. I definitely think, now is the time to buy. Now, I will say full disclosure, you know I'm kind of in market movers anyway, so I kind of got to jump on it. And so I've got some guys that, I'm going to talk about it. And in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and hop in, Tamara. Like, I'm going to get this screen share going right now. Devin, roll that beautiful bean footage. Hopefully we don't have any copyright problems with that from Bush's Baked Beans. But if you kind of look at this list now, and this is the last 7 days, just in the last week, and the reason why I wanted to start here is because the playoffs are just getting started, right? Just started Tuesday? Just started Tuesday. So this will give you a really good indication. Now, clearly, Bo's at the top of the list. He's not going to. He's not a guy that we think is going to have a whole lot of impact anyway. And all I'm looking at is PSA 10. Here's something that stood out to me, Tambo, and I looked at this Colin Sexton, and in my mind, right, Colin Sexton seems to be a big part of Cleveland's future, right? A guy that's going to take a lot of shots, seems to kind of be one of the primary ball handlers of the team, him and Darius Garland. He's already down 38%. Maybe he dips a little bit more. But then what caught me, Luka Doncic, Optic Hollow, RJ Barrett, Mosaic. I mean, all these guys are in the playoffs. Jimmy Butler, Prism, down 33%. Maybe that's a reaction to them getting throttled in the last game. So when you look at that, Ja Morant down his select premier down 29%, Bradley Beal, Anthony Simons, who isn't that big of a deal, but Trae Young, his select. So when I'm looking at a lot of these, and look at a lot of these guys, Tambo, that are kind of in this 30% range, most of these guys are in the playoffs right now. I was very taken aback, and I understand that RJ Barrett isn't the star yet of the Knicks. I understand that Rui Hachimura isn't the star. Like, I totally get that. But Michael Porter Jr. being down in his optic, I mean, that one really caught me off guard. If this team's going to go deep into the playoffs with no Jamal Murray, no PJ Dozier right now, and I know he's just a role player, it feels to me like this could be a card that's even undervalued today. Now, clearly it's not, a whole lot of sales, just 10 sales. But my point is Donovan Mitchell, now clearly he's been hurt. Zion, like you talked about him being down. Bam Adebayo, he's down. I mean, this list was chock full of playoff players, Tambo. I want to pause right there because I want to get your read. When I pulled this up, I was absolutely floored that some of these teams that are in the playoffs had massive dips like this on some of these cards, which really, I mean, I didn't expect this. So what's your read? Just kind of give me your initial thoughts, just kind of pulling this up cards over the past week.
Yeah, it looks like some are down. I think the other thing too is just the bit like the sets, right? We like optic. I just don't know. And that's where we've had this conversation in the past on this exact very show, talking about select versus prism versus optic and what we all like. And then you and I like some off the wall stuff like revolution, things like that.
God. So don't get me started about revolution. That's my favorite.
Right. And so that's what I'm saying. So you got to see it from that perspective too. Like, I know you can compare within, but like maybe we should pull up Michael Porter Jr., pull him up on his own, and let's see between select and optic and prism and what those are doing, because I think that's part of it. And then, like I said, I just do think that a lot of people are moving their money around a little bit to different places right now. And that's where we got to know what we want to capitalize on and where we can find it to be able to make that happen. Because if there's deals out there, now's the time to get them. It's just like you said, you wouldn't expect it with the playoffs. It's an odd year in the sense of, like I said, a lot of new things coming out and a lot of things transitioning. But let's take a look here and see with his rookie cards, all PSA 10.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to select mostly the base.
Yeah. Do that.
Base. I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss it because I know select is, it's a little bit. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
There we go. We should be good once we pull this up. If not, I mean, it'll still give us a good baseline. And we'll pull up Michael Porter. Let's just see where he is. Coming right up, folks. And look at that. Look at that. That's the chart. And now we get down to the nitty gritty where we can see what it looks like.
Yeah. I think one of the things that stands out to me right away, Will, is just so you go back up for a second to the chart.
And I will.
Itself,
yeah.
Is that you can see the spike. It's what we've always talked about. And I guess we'll get to it again here too. Like, you almost have to buy earlier for the hype. And you had to know that if they started to make a run in the playoffs, it's almost too late to hop in and buy. Now here you can hop in and buy it and hope for the next spike. That's kind of a good spot to your point. But I'm saying, if what happens is people get the news of it, like, oh, this guy's the new star, let me go buy Michael Porter Jr. And then all of a sudden everyone is listing them for sale and you start to see the dips right away and the drops from that. We can almost wait for that. So if you miss the hype, and I saw it there earlier, not to change topics or anything, but like I saw Kobe Bryant on the list, some of his upper deck 96 base card, PSA 10. The hype was, we knew he was going to the Hall of Fame. Those cards were having an uptick. And then obviously once the Hall of Fame stuff happened, it's almost like the announcement of the Hall of Fame or the memory that it's about to happen is when the sell point is, versus afterwards, once the hype dies down. It's not when he gets inducted, because that's where all the dips came since he got inducted.
Yeah.
Same thing here. These guys are in the playoffs. Michael Porter is the guy. He's been performing and doing well for them. But now it's almost like it's the point of, if you want to buy, now you can almost get in there and buy because the hype's died right back down. So it's an opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, even looking at it, ironically, it's all his cards. Now, clearly, his concourse isn't as much, 5%, 17%, 25% on the optic. And I do think, just kind of looking at the overall landscape, it does feel like optic, it depends on how you look at it. Glass half full, glass half empty. Optic might not be as popular, right? Mm-hmm. But optic also may have a little bit more upside depending on which players they are and how well they do, how many all-star appearances, do they win a championship, So that's kind of my thought process behind it. And I do like optic as a brand as well. I think it's, I think it's really comparable to Prism in terms of the card quality, right? It's a kind of a thick card, so I do like it. But I mean, once you get in a PSA case anyway, that really doesn't matter. They're all going to be about the same. But I always feel like optic has a little bit more upside because I think Select is catching on, where most people are realizing, man, Select is just a stellar brand, and we just want to kind of get involved in that. So that's Michael
Look at it though. Look at this. It's the best looking card. Right there. He's about to dunk the ball. It's got the nice outlines on the sidelines, which looks better than Prism. It's not as sort of basic or plain. I love the rated rookie symbol. I love getting the actual optic version, not the Don Russ, where you get the D in there, the O for the optic. You'll see, like, that all makes sense. But and then on top of it, there's only 200 of the Select. And that's why, again, we talked about this forever. That was not going to come around, like the scarcity factor. And when we get to our Top Shot show next week and we bring this stuff up again, like, people just are ignoring it. And they always were in the physical cardboard space, because like, it's just the math. If there's only 200 of these ones, there's only going to be 200. If he turns out to be great, then you're going to want to have the card that there's only 200 of. Is 4,200 a lot? Not really, but it's still a lot versus 200. So maybe pull up Luka right now for the same stuff. Let's see what that's like, just to check our optic thing first. I want to see if optic is down everywhere, which I'm guessing it is, but I just would be curious. That's why this tool is so powerful. Like you said, to have this and to be able to go through and see and compare, you can start to get an idea. I guess for me, Will, it comes down though, do I want to buy optic just because it's down the most? Is it really the most upside, or are people sort of saying, look, it's good, but I either want Prism or I want Select? And that's, you can't have everybody having everything, and it's to each their own what you like. But usually for me and you talking about like Revolution, or I like even the Phoenix ones, like the Chronicles Phoenix. I think
Phoenix is beautiful.
It looks nice.
Beautiful.
But it's a PC card. It's not something I'm going to be trying to make a bunch of. I just want to have them. I like them. They look nice. I want to have the set of the guys that I like within it. Same with Revolution. So I think that's kind of cool. This is more from an investment standpoint. If you're looking at it.
And let me say this. I'm going to mention Revolution again, because I know I think everybody, if you've watched this show, you understand that Revolution is by far my favorite set, but I'm not going to sell Revolution cards. I'm going to grade them and keep them. Like, that's my wall, right? If I get Revolution, that's stuff that goes up in my display case. You won't see me selling any Revolution unless I already have it and I just happen to be on the internet. And it's like, this is way too cheap. Let me grab this and flip it. But Revolution, that's my PC personal favorite. Tambo, I haven't pulled up the chart yet, but judging by the trend, man, Luka's cards are on their way down. In the playoffs, just beat the LA Clippers the other night. I think they're going to be playing again tonight as we're recording. But I mean, this is probably going along with the trend that you've talked about. The hype comes before the news, right? The hype comes before the news. The hype comes before the playoffs. The hype comes before the Hall of Fame. So he's coming into the playoffs, and it's like, maybe we'll ride the hype. But look at this, though. He was higher in February, and it looks like he's been on a steady trend downward. Do you think that has anything to do with Luka maybe not having some of the bigger performances like he did last year? Massive triple-double, performances, once a week, twice a week, couple times a month. We didn't really see that from him this year overall. Do you think that played a part to his card prices? And then we'll get into, what it's looking like in terms of the trend lines.
Yeah, I think that's a part of it. Always, anytime someone's doing something big, you can see there's certain spikes there. So obviously you can probably correlate that and go back and look and say, okay, a big game, or now they're going to get this or whatever, this, that, and the other. But he said himself, he doesn't care about the MVP, cares about winning a championship. And that would definitely change things, and it could come back around. But it all depends on what you're buying for and your reasoning and whatnot. I think another thing, I was curious to get your thoughts on this. What about cards coming back? Because we're looking at PSA 10s. We know that they ramped up and shut down their stuff. We talked about this a month and a half ago. Obviously, more cards are starting to come out. We see these pop counts rising. Like, I feel like right now, if anyone, I know myself, I got some cards there. When they come back, I just want to sell them. Like, they've been there for so long, it feels like it's just like, the ones that I sent to keep, I'm keeping. But talking again, keeping, what's your strategy in mind? The ones that I have there, like, I've got enough football cards there that I thought I was going to get back way before almost the end of last season, like for the playoffs. And now I'm just hoping to get them back before this season starts, where I can sell these things off with some hype based on that and make my money that way. Cause a lot of them were fresh pulls or in a break or something like that, where I actually can make some decent coin on these things and get a little money out of them. But I wonder if that's part of it as well, because the trend line realistically doesn't have a whole lot else to it. Like, why else would it be just nonstop trending down? And like I said, I think people are moving their money elsewhere. And then on top of it, just recognizing that unless he does something huge, then who knows? How else do we get these giant spikes?
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up. And I think Luka Tambo was a fantastic choice, because this is kind of something that, and I think we've talked about it before, was Luka's upside already baked in? Mm-hmm. Because, Luka last season, I mean, his card 16, 17, 1,800, I mean, really pushing the envelope, 2,000. I'm just using examples. And so it's like, okay, you have to think about where he's at in his career. He's still really young. He's got, I think 2 All-Star appearances now, but no league MVP, no scoring title, no championships. And the prices were astronomical. I mean, I think we had Luka at some points, selling for more than a guy like Kobe. Before the news, I'm saying in certain products, not all products, certain products. So my point is, I think the upside was baked into the price. And now that his career, and look, he's still early, he's got plenty of time. But now that it's kind of stabilizing, I think we're seeing a lot of these cards kind of regress back to maybe what they should have been before, versus starting out high and coming back. We probably should have started where they were now and then gradually increase. But I am going to come down, and let's just take a look at it here. So if you notice, this is for, I'm going to start up top. This is for the Optic, right? Last sale price looks like it was $463. That was on yesterday. Change was $262, down 36%. 29% here with the Prism. As you can see, the Prism was $1,356 average, sale of $951, and then the Select $1,125, average sale, last sale date $672, a drop of 40%. What I think is interesting to me, Tambo, is these percentages are within a pretty good range of each other. Like, it's not like one's 5 and the next one's 50. 36, 29, 40. That's all pretty tight for me. And I think that's reflected here when you look where the trend lines are going down on all the products. So, what's kind of your read? I still think these are spots that I want to get in on some of these players. Maybe they trend a little bit lower. I'm always of the mind that I can't time the market, but I can seize opportunities when they present themselves. What are your thoughts on Luka and how he's looking across the board in all products?
Yeah, a few things. And you mentioned, like, we're not trying to get it twisted here. We know he's got a long career ahead still. He's going to be successful. We expect it to be, at least. But also don't forget that these prices are still 3-4x what they were just a year before this. Like, he's still way up on the long term. It's when people are wanting it back to 1,800. Maybe that's where it was a little bit more baked in, when people started to say and realize, okay, wait, this guy's selling for just a little bit less than Kobe's. And now I need to go buy those. I need to buy Durant's. I need to buy LeBron's, and all those started to take off, and MJ's and whatnot. But I mean, go back down for a second, or it's still right there in front of us. The pop count's 1443. This Select, obviously another point with Luka, and that's why I wanted to bring him up, the liquidity factor. There's going to be way more Luka sales floating through than there is going to be Michael Porter Jr. sales, even at the peak of Michael Porter Jr. sales. So that's why we want to use sort of Luka as the base case to look at and say, okay, here's where we're at. Here's what he's doing. So I did want to see the Optic example to see if Optic was down more than the others. It's interesting that Select is down, but then you remember the liquidity factor as well, where he is if someone just wants to get rid of it, they want to, but realistically, that's why I said, if you scroll back down there and it's just a better view of it, you can see it here. Population 1443 to his ever fast growing almost 17,000 in the Prism. And it's pretty much this, you can get it for cheaper, which you always could, but I'm saying it's down quite a bit right now. So if you think it'll go a little bit lower, then wait it out. If you don't, and you like that card, then that's the time to pick it up. There's less than 10% of the Select, which again, I think is a better picture. I know it's not the Prism, but to me, it's just a better card. And the fact that the pop count is so low, I like that quite a bit for a really great product that just, again, not as many are going to come back. And even if the more are coming back from PSA, that means more Prisms are coming back even more tenfold. So, you know what I mean? That's where you always, doesn't really matter if you say, well, yeah, but more Selects are coming back too. Yeah. But if you're going to tell me 5 Selects are coming back, there's probably 50 Prisms coming back, because that's just the pop count. It always has been. And they were harder to get too. Select retail was never a thing until this NFL season, right? As far as getting,
and I almost hate that. And what I mean by hate is, I don't mean a strong hate. I mean, I almost wish they would have kept it hobby, because you know, if it's going retail, the pop counts are going up. They're just capitalizing on the market. And I get it. I understand it. We're all, you know, the card companies are in to make money. But I do think there's still value in keeping certain things hobby. I did want to touch on something that you mentioned in terms of this pop count, though. Because right now, like you said, we might as well call Luka 17,000. I'm absolutely positive. I haven't talked to anyone at PSA, and I'm sure you haven't either. I'm absolutely positive there are more Luka cards at PSA right now. Oh, yeah. Absolutely positive. Now, how much, I don't know, but I'm sure there's plenty, and these numbers are going to continue to push. And now I'm just getting into basic economics. If there's more supply, the price has to come down. Mm-hmm. It just has to. You know, when we're flooding the market with Lukas, and just think about it just in terms of eBay. You did the comparison of Michael Porter Jr. to Luka, which I thought was fantastic. If you type in Luka Doncic, you know, Prism rookie, you're going to get thousands and thousands and thousands of listings. And when somebody's ready to move something, what do you think they're going to do, Tambo? Instead of them pricing it up, if they've had it there for a month, or, you know, in this collectible space that they call it paper hands, they're going to get paper hands. They're going to say, man, I need to make some money. I want to get out of this. I want to go buy the new hot thing. I want something else. Maybe they sell their Luka for 800. And then now what happens is now there's kind of this market reset, and everybody's like, well, that one sold for 800. It sold quickly. Do I need to bring mine down to 850? Do I need to bring it down to 750? And then the market takes the next shift, right? And then it takes, you know, the NBA season to ramp back up, get the excitement back. Oh, let me go ahead and buy Luka while he's down. Everybody realizes they're buying Luka. Then they gradually push it back, 750, 800, 850, 900. Before you know it, he's 1,200 before the season starts. Like you said, sell the hype, buy the news, right? We want to buy after it's on its way back down. And not that we can time it perfectly, but I think Luka, I mean, for him to be such a great player, and let me just point this out, Tam, and I'm going to kick it back over to you. All these these little dots you see are sales. So as you can see, you know, Tambo talks about the liquidity factor, which is fantastic. I mean, he's just got so many sales in all products, even Select. And clearly he's not going to have as many because of the pop count. But even the pop count on Optic, Tambo, look at that. I mean, they're only 3,993 at this recording. But look at the price. I mean, he's selling a whole lot of Optic. So Luka's going to be a fantastic buy for us, I think. Even right now, as we speak, I think Luka's a good buy while he's in the playoffs. I would maybe be looking at, and I don't know if you can tell, but I'm starting to really get some love for Optic here. I think I'm going to go on a little Optic binge and buy a few guys that I like. Sexton. Sexton's probably going to be a flip. Doncic will be a hold. Michael Porter Jr. will probably be a hold. So forth and so on. Back over to you, Tambo.
For me right here, the one thing I would say though is like just a few things just to tag back up with what you mentioned is like, if I was buying one Luka right now, I'm buying the Select because of, like I said, the low pop count, I think will always hold itself and hold its own place. And like I said, even if you're holding it just for a little while and then wanting to sell it later or let it go, you've got way less worry with the Select than you do with the Prism. We know Prism's coming back 10X. If you want a safety piece, you could go with the Optic because it's pretty much held its own across the board. The Optic has been steady. Yes, it's come down some like the others, but it's just been holding its own. Again, when I look at that, I also think there's a lot of Optic there because Optic and Prism were easier to get and get access to and see. Like I remember watching on breaks, people pull these cards. Like, yes, it was an exciting moment at the time during the COVID shutdown, all this, watching these team breaks and people pulling these cards, but it was very, very rare to see someone even have a select hobby box from his rookie year with Luka and then pull that card on top of it. I don't even remember seeing that. So that's just one of those things where you just have to pick up the right one. And if for me, it would definitely be the select based on the pop count, the fact it's down the most of all of them, which I don't think it should be. And I think if you look across most cards, it would be more like the Porter Jr. situation where it looks like here, a few people just decided to let their select Lukas go while they still had some value. But again, they're probably not remembering that these cards used to be $100 or $200 in a PSA 10. And now you're able to get 800 out of it. People still feel pretty good. And that's really the difference maker when realistically it could get back further than that. And right now they've sold for even lower. So yeah, I like the select in Luka. In something else like the Michael Porter Jr., like you mentioned, you pretty much can't lose buying that Optic in a PSA 10 because you can buy it, hang on to it. In worst case scenario, you're left with the card, but you're not out a bunch of money. You didn't pay a bunch for it.
Yeah,
so
for sure. And listen, I'm going to move along. We're almost about to wrap this thing up, Tambo. And I think this was these shows are always good. I always enjoy them. Last question, and then we'll kind of get out of here. Is the market getting sharper, causing us to buy earlier? And the reason why I'm asking, because typically, and let me say typically for me, and I do think generally in the market, what we would do is we would buy off season. Like, okay, NBA playoffs are done. We got a finals champion. Okay, let me go and see what NBA cards are available right now. I do think market movers has helped us, right? Because now we can look now and say, oh, this card's down right now. I don't even have to wait. I can get in right now. And maybe it goes down 40%, 50%, but I'm comfortable paying these prices because I know where they were, right? So market movers has helped us. Get on sportscardinvestor.com, 20% off, promo code grinders. But is the field getting sharper, right? Are we going to start seeing trends where, okay, maybe we start looking more at the beginning of the playoffs or mid playoffs instead of waiting all the way to the end to try to get in on some of these deals?
Yeah, I think if you break the question down in two places, because you ask, is the field getting sharper, if you will,
yes.
You'll call it the field, and does it causing us to buy earlier? Is the field getting sharper? Absolutely. Tools like this show you that how we can get sharper. People are starting to learn more. People are figuring out pop count. People are figuring out brands and things within them, as we just looked at on this very show. Does it cause us to buy earlier? I think, again, it always comes back to what your goals are and what you have in mind. I think most people watching want to know how they can make money. And I think that one thing, Will, and I can relate it back using football as an example, where we do have to take some risk on in that scenario. We had to hope with Carson Wentz. We knew he was likely to get traded. So we already had something to go off of. So I'm not saying you're going to have all the information, but we did have a piece of information that seemed likely. Could it have went bad? Of course. We had the perfect scenario. You had it with Cam Newton a couple years ago. I'm using football for this, but you can tie it into basketball after I'm done. I'm just saying if you have that idea in your mind, yes, it's a risk to go out and buy it, but that's why you're getting them for pennies on the dollar. And if you're doing guys that are still pretty good names, or they're going to get opportunity, our perfect storm was Carson Wentz going to the Indianapolis Colts, and I 4-5x'd on pretty much every Wentz card I bought. The other side of that is it would make sure you're being smart with what you're doing with you. So how would you know? How would this? My point on that side of things is trying to buy them a little bit cheaper. And you gave, when we did the baseball show, a guy like Miguel Andahar, he's still getting his friggin' opportunities. He's still getting to play for these Yankees here and there, and he just hasn't done anything with it yet. But what are we really out if it didn't go wrong? And this is one where it went backwards. You say, we're not like we're always picking winners. This was a chance for us to get a guy that you could make 3-4x on no problem with maybe one or two big games or as the season went on. It didn't happen yet, but we're not out a bunch of money because of it. So don't go out buying an $800 Luka hoping that it goes up to $1,500 or $1,600, because we've already seen and just explained to you why that's not likely to happen, but it still could be a good long-term hold. Or even, in the interim, you could make a little bit on it, but why would you do that for that much money? There's other flips I could buy and make more. That's the way I look at it. So that's my thoughts on it. I think definitely the market has got sharper. I think you do got to take a little bit more risk when out there buying, but I think when you're taking that risk, you should try and do it with smaller buy-ins, if you will, even going back to the DFS rule, what we do here, where maybe you take your chances in the $5 or the mini max before you go in with the sharks and swim in the big tournaments. It's the same thing with these cards. Take some shots at some lower end guys, learn the game a little bit more and see how it plays out and take your shots that way.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm glad you mentioned that because I don't want people to think we're always hitting winners. I mean, we're 2 out of 3. Like in terms of guys, we're 2 out of 3. But Andahar is definitely a guy that up until this point hasn't performed for us. He has been on the field, ladies and gentlemen. Like you said, he's got his opportunities. But on the flip side of that, just like Cam Newton, we're not out of a bunch of money, folks. I mean, we got some really high quality cards, $40, $30. I mean, I could literally just list them for that and get my money back. You know, I don't want to say quickly, but somebody will buy it eventually, right? You know, because we got autos and stuff like that. In terms of, like you said, with Wentz, clearly, you know, it was speculative, but hoping for the news. How is that going to relate to basketball? I think what you've got to start doing maybe in basketball is look at guys that have contract negotiations coming up, right? Contract situations where, for instance, a guy like Zion Williamson, I'm using him as an example. If you haven't started buying Zion yet, okay. But it's time for his contract to be up, specifically maybe his rookie contract. I do think he'll go back to New Orleans because it's going to be more lucrative for him to just stay on that one. But the 1, 2, or 3 years after that, he's out of there if they haven't won a championship. He's going to a big market, New York, LA, Miami, something like that. That might be one of those scenarios for NBA where you start looking ahead and say, who are the guys that have contracts coming up that could possibly have big splash potential, right? Because we saw it in baseball. George Springer goes to, I was going to say the Expos, the Blue Jays, and his price, he gets a spike, right when he goes, right? Nolan Arenado goes to St. Louis, gets a spike, right off the news. So if you can kind of look ahead and say, hey, who are some good players that, you know, have some pretty good liquidity or that, you know, will probably have a big splash, people be interested. Start looking ahead now. Go to ESPN.com. You know, look, who's got a contract coming up that's going to end, and look for those guys, see if there's some opportunities, and go ahead and buy those cards now and price them where you want. Because once the news comes out, we just talked about it. Buy the hype, sell the hype, buy the news, right? That's where I am with that. That's kind of how I'm thinking about it. So definitely market getting sharper. Definitely, I think we need to start buying earlier. Last closing thoughts, Tambo, and then we'll take this thing home.
Yeah, SGA. I'll say it again. I brought him up earlier. I'll give a target here because for me, it ties in. I want to tie it back in. I know I mentioned football. I know I mentioned baseball, but this is a basketball show. SGA, I love this. And I've brought this up in the past before. Markets, right? If your guy's in Boston or LA or New York, well, guess what? He's not in any of those cities. He's Canadian, though. I'm Canadian. There's a big market in Canada for SGA. Oklahoma City has, I think, 1.4 million picks. I don't think it's that high, but they got a lot of picks that they can move. And what I want to tie back in with NBA is that it's not just about him and what he's going to do. It's about what could the team do around him. Could they make some moves? Could there be some hype around Oklahoma City Thunder? They've got a young team. They've got guys that they can move and make some off-season stuff happen, and picks and Dorts and guys of the Pokus and all these guys in the world that they can move around and trade and make things happen that could then make this team a much better contender or a better thing. And then people automatically realize, oh, shoot, now I should think about buying SGA because his team just got better. Well, it might be too late because other people that were speculating already had those cards out listed for 3-4x what they bought them for right now when they were thinking about it. So just a guy I thought I'd bring up. I think that's a good way to speculate. And worst case scenario, you're left with a guy that's pretty good, scores, going to be an all-star, all these stuff that goes with him. And he's going to put up some big games, plus the Canadian market behind him. You can break even at worst or sell it for few bucks less than you paid for it if something really doesn't pan out. I personally think a lot of good things will happen for him. So I'm excited about a guy like him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I like the SGA call. I think for me, and I promise I'm not doing this to be funny here. What if I told you I think Steph Curry's got massive upside right now, considering they're out of the playoffs? Mm-hmm. He doesn't have a whole lot of rookie cards. Like everybody knows this Topps Chrome with him in a t-shirt, right? Or some of the Panini, I can't remember the brand, but these ones where he's just got rookie on the side. I think Steph Curry right now has immense upside going into next season because of the Klay Thompson factor. Mm-hmm. This team should come out firing on all cylinders. They should win more games, right? They should get into the playoffs. They should make some noise. James Wiseman will be back. Draymond will be there. I think we saw Andrew Wiggins play a good role with this team, right? I mean, Andrew Wiggins, it might not be the guy that we were thinking about in terms of number one pick, star the team, take over a game. Andrew Wiggins secretly, Tambo, played very well for the Warriors. Will Kelly Oubre be there? We don't know. But my point is, I think Steph Curry, if they're going to win another championship, I think it comes next year. If you speculate, you think that the Warriors are going to do something like that, have a massive run, get back to the finals, I think we're buying Curry right now while the world is going to forget about him before it's too late. Because if he wins another championship and is in the MVP discussion right now, I don't think he's going to win it. Clearly, it's probably going to be Jokic. But in the discussion this year, next year's team will win more games, probably be top 4 in the West.
He gets forgotten about so often too. And just to add in real quick, and you can take us home, he gets forgotten about. He'll die down a little bit more as these playoffs continue on, because people think about guys like Kawhi and Durant and LeBron and all these different names that are out there. And then he's in that market, the Bay Area. That's a great market to be in. Yeah. And it's a team that's going to always have a lot of hype about them. What if they move Draymond? Who knows what they end up doing? They got a good young guy in Wiseman. They got options there with Klay coming back and all these things. So it's, again, a team that will have hype, a good market, an off season, missing the playoffs, essentially down and out. And now you've got an opportunity. And when they get to their whole piece, everyone will remember Curry again, and he's the one that's worth the money. So I love that call. Appreciate you, Will. Great show, man. Take us home.
Yes, sir. Thanks, everyone, for joining the castle. Once again, get over to sportscardinvestor.com. Promo code GRINDERS. Get in on that Market Movers tool. 20% off that first payment for the month or for the year. You've joined us. Thanks for coming into the castle. We're kicking you out the front door. We'll see you next week.